Every night, for a collective span of several years over a human lifetime, we willingly surrender our consciousness, close our eyes, and enter a realm untethered from physical law and linear time. We think of sleep as a state of passive rest, a quiet biological void, or as the ancients called it, the brother of death. But this is a profound illusion. Armed with the tools of modern neuroscience, high-density EEE, and real-time functional brain mapping, we have uncovered an astonishing truth. Sleep is not a monolithic state of passive rest, but a highly structured, violently dynamic, and meticulously choreographed biological process. A brain does not simply shut down. It embarks on its most critical mission of the day. You are about to journey into the ultimate frontier, the hidden universe inside your own skull. To understand the theater of dreams, we must first understand the architecture of the descent. The journey begins hours before your head ever hits the pillow. Throughout your waking day, as your brain solves problems, makes decisions, and processes the world, it burns through a massive amount of energy. This constant neural firing creates a buildup of metabolic waste, including a chemical called adenosine. Think of adenosine as a biological hourglass. As it steadily accumulates in the basal forebrain, it creates an unbearable, invisible weight known as homeostatic sleep pressure. Simultaneously, a tiny cluster of cells known as the suprachiasmatic nucleus acts as your brain's master circadian clock, tracking the waning light of day to synchronize your biological rhythms. When the homeostatic pressure and the circadian drive reach a tipping point, a specialized assassin of wakefulness awakens deep within your hypothalamus, the ventrolateral preoptic nucleus, or VLPO. The VLPO sends inhibitory neurotransmitters, specifically GABA and galanin, plunging directly into the brain's arousal centers. These arousal centers, which pump out wake-inducing chemicals like histamine, serotonin, and noradrenaline, are suddenly gagged and silenced. Neuroscientists call this elegant, mutually inhibitory circuit the flip-flop switch. The brain hates transitional states. It wants you fully awake or fully asleep. Once the VLPO gains the upper hand, the switch forcefully flips. Specialized cells in the lateral hypothalamus that produce a peptide called orexin normally act as a finger on the switch to keep us awake. But as sleep pressure mounts, their influence is overcome. Your consciousness is severed, and you plunge into the abyss. As you succumb to slumber, you enter the stages of non-rapid eye movement sleep, or NREM. The thalamus, the grand sensory relay station of the brain, acts like a heavy iron gate slamming shut, blocking most external sights and sounds from reaching your cerebral cortex. You drift deeper until you hit the ocean floor of sleep, slow wave sleep. Here, the brain's electrical output is dominated by massive, synchronous pulses known as delta waves. If we zoom into the microscopic level of individual neurons during this deep sleep, we witness a bizarre synchronized dance called neuronal bistability. The neurons alternate between an up state, where they fire collectively, and a down state, a hyperpolarized phase where millions of neurons fall entirely silent for fractions of a second. During these silent down states, the causal links between different brain regions literally break apart. Because the cortex is splintered into isolated islands of activity, it can no longer integrate information. The network collapses. From your internal perspective, the universe has vanished. You are completely, profoundly unconscious. Yet, miraculously, advanced trimodal imaging reveals that while higher-order cognitive networks quiet down, your primary sensory and motor areas stay relatively active. Your brain intentionally keeps a low-power radar on, maintaining environmental awareness so that a sudden, threatening sound can still trigger an immediate awakening. While your mind is entirely blank. Your physical brain engages in one of the most astonishing transformations in the animal kingdom. For decades, scientists wondered why we risk the vulnerability of sleep. The answer lies in a hidden plumbing network dubbed the glymphatic system. During deep NREM sleep, your brain cells physically shrink in size by up to 60%. This massive cellular contraction expands the microscopic spaces between neurons, allowing cerebrospinal fluid to rush in and wash over the brain tissue like a high-pressure hose. The sleeping brain is pumping this fluid to flush away the toxic metabolic ash left behind by waking thought, including amyloid beta, a protein heavily implicated in the devastating onset of Alzheimer's disease. Your brain possesses a limited energy supply. It simply cannot simultaneously process the waking world and clean itself. As researchers note, it is like hosting a house party. You can either entertain the guests or you can clean the house, but you cannot do both at the same time. This nightly brainwashing is strictly controlled by a massive drop in noradrenaline, a wake-promoting chemical whose absence signals that it is safe to shrink the cells and take out the trash. But sleep is not merely about clearing physical toxins. It is about pruning our neural circuitry. Every day, as you learn, adapt, and experience the world, your brain strengthens the connections between its neurons, a process known as synaptic potentiation. However, this waking plasticity comes at a staggering biological cost. Strengthened synapses consume vast amounts of your brain's energy budget, take up precious physical space within the dense gray matter of the skull, and progressively saturate your capacity to learn anything new. Enter the synaptic homeostasis hypothesis. During the rhythmic, rolling slow waves of NREM sleep, the brain actively scales down these synaptic connections. Every synapse impinging on a neuron is proportionally weakened. The crucial, robust memories survive this downscaling, but the weak, irrelevant neural noise is pruned away and erased entirely. Sleep, therefore, is the ultimate price we pay for the brain's daytime plasticity. It is an investment that restores our energy, frees up physical space, and sharpens the signal-to-noise ratio in our neural circuits, ensuring we wake up with a clean slate, ready to learn anew. While this downscaling occurs, the brain is simultaneously acting as a master archivist. The new experiences of your day are initially held in the hippocampus, which acts as a fragile, temporary storage buffer. But for a memory to become permanent, it must be transferred to the vast, distributed networks of the cerebral cortex. This process, known as active systems consolidation, is driven by a breathtaking neural symphony. During NREM sleep, 3 distinct brain rhythms align in perfect temporal harmony: slow oscillations from the cortex, sleep spindles from the thalamus, and high-frequency sharp-wave ripples from the hippocampus. During these sharp-wave ripples, the brain literally replays the events of the day at lightning speed, packaging the data and transferring it upward to the cortex for long-term storage. Approximately 70 to 90 minutes into this quiet, restorative descent, the rolling hills of NREM sleep shatter. Deep within the brainstem, in a region known as the pons, chaotic electrical signals begin to surge upward. The quiet brain bursts back to life with a frenetic electrical intensity that rivals being wide awake. Your eyes dart rapidly back and forth beneath your closed eyelids. You have entered rapid eye movement, or REM sleep. Yet even as your brain fires with waking intensity, the same brainstem signals travel down your spinal cord, actively inhibiting your motor neurons. You are plunged into a state of profound muscular paralysis, known as euryemetonia, a vital evolutionary safeguard that prevents you from physically acting out the actions of your dreams. Your brain's neurochemical landscape has now been radically altered. The brain is flooded with acetylcholine, a neurotransmitter that fuels intense cortical activation and vivid visual imagery. Dopamine levels surge in regions like the nucleus accumbens, signaling a shift toward integrating memories, abstraction, and emotional tagging. Simultaneously, the neuromodulators noradrenaline and serotonin, the very chemicals responsible for logical reasoning, attention, and rational thought, are almost entirely shut off. Asterisk, in this unique chemical environment, the theater of dreams opens its curtains. The activation synthesis hypothesis reveals that the cortex is bombarded with random, chaotic signals from the brainstem. The cortex, an exquisite meaning-making machine, desperately tries to weave a coherent narrative from this random neural static. If the signals hit the motor cortex, we dream we are running. If they hit the visual cortex, bizarre landscapes materialize. Asterisk. But functional MRI scans reveal that dreaming is far more than random static. The limbic system, the brain's emotional heartland, goes into overdrive. The amygdala, the center for processing fear and intense emotion, becomes hyperactive, explaining why so many of our dreams are drenched in anxiety or terror. Meanwhile, the dorsal prefrontal cortex, the brain's executive suite, responsible for logic, self-reflection, and critical judgment, goes completely offline. Without this center of rationality, our ability to question reality dissolves. We accept the most bizarre, impossible scenarios without a second thought. We converse with the dead, breathe underwater, and fly without wings, completely blind to the absurdity of our own minds. Asterisk. This altered state of consciousness is not a malfunction. It is a highly optimized environment designed for psychological alchemy. One of the most profound functions of REM sleep is to serve as overnight therapy. Throughout the day, we accumulate emotionally charged, sometimes traumatic, memories. During REM sleep, the brain reactivates and reprocesses these difficult experiences. But crucially, it does so in a neurochemical environment entirely completely devoid of the stress-inducing chemical noradrenaline. Dreaming allows us to re-examine trauma in a safe, virtual space, stripping away the painful, visceral emotional edge while retaining the informational memory of the event. This nightly emotional recalibration is why we so often wake up with a softened, clearer perspective on yesterday's sorrows. Asterisk. From an evolutionary perspective, the dreaming brain is our most ancient survival mechanism. The threat simulation theory posits that dreams serve as a high-fidelity virtual reality simulator. For our ancient ancestors, the waking world was fraught with physical peril. By simulating threats in the safe paralysis of a dream being, chased by a predator, falling from a height, or engaging in combat, early humans rehearsed their fight or flight instincts. Today, the brain doesn't distinguish between a saber-toothed cat and a looming deadline. It simply runs the simulation, generating anxiety dreams, to keep our coping mechanisms sharpened and ready for the challenges of the waking world. Asterisk. Occasionally, this nightly simulation achieves a miraculous, paradoxical state known as lucid dreaming. In a lucid dream, the dormant prefrontal cortex suddenly flickers back to life during REM sleep. The dreamer is struck by a spark of profound insight. They realize they are dreaming. No longer a passive passenger, the dreamer gains conscious volition, able to direct the narrative, shape the environment, and consciously explore the architecture of their own mind. By communicating with lucid dreamers through prearranged eye movements, scientists have proven that the actions performed in a dream, like clenching a fist, activate the exact same motor pathways in the physical brain as doing it in waking life. The existence of the dream world forces us to confront a staggering philosophical reality. Every night, without any sensory input from the external physical world, your brain spontaneously generates a complete, immersive three-dimensional universe. It populates this universe with characters, physics, emotions, and landscapes. This reveals that waking reality itself is an active construction, a controlled hallucination generated by the brain, merely corrected by the sensory data of the outside world. When that sensory data is cut off in sleep, the brain's raw, universe-generating power is unleashed in its purest form. Asterisk, we do not go to sleep to escape reality. We descend into the midnight labyrinth to build, repair, and understand it. The sleeping brain is a tireless forge, where the toxic ash of the day is washed away, where the useless noise of our neural circuits is pruned into silence, and where the fragile memories of our lives are cemented into the foundation of our identity. It is an arena where we safely face our deepest fears and strip the venom from our traumas. The astonishing science of the sleeping brain reveals that the darkness of sleep is not an end, but a beginning, a profound nightly ritual where our minds tell stories to themselves in the dark, meticulously rebuilding us. So we are ready, once more, to step into the light. You have been cleansed in the deep dark of slow-wave sleep, but the nocturnal journey is far from over. Approximately 70 to 90 minutes into your quiet descent, the rolling delta waves of deep sleep are shattered. Deep within the primitive stalk of the brainstem, specifically a region known as the pons, a powerful cascade of signals begins to surge upward. The quiet brain bursts back to life with a frenetic electrical intensity that rivals being wide awake. You have entered the paradoxical realm of rapid eye movement, or REM sleep, asterisk, as this electrical storm sweeps through your cortex. Brainstem signals simultaneously travel down your spinal cord to actively paralyze your motor neurons. This state of profound muscular paralysis, known as REM atonia, is a vital evolutionary safeguard preventing you from physically acting out your dreams. When this brainstem circuitry malfunctions, a condition known as REM sleep behavior disorder arises, where individuals violently thrash, kick, and fight invisible foes in their sleep, providing dramatic proof that the brain runs a full physical simulation while you dream. Trapped in this temporary paralysis, your eyes begin to dart back and forth rapidly, scanning a universe visible only to you. Asterisk, to understand the bizarre, surreal landscapes of our dreams, we must first look at the radical chemical transformation your brain undergoes. The neurochemical landscape of your mind has been entirely rewritten. Your brain is suddenly flooded with acetylcholine, a powerful neurotransmitter that fuels intense cortical activation and vivid visual imagery. Simultaneously, the neuromodulators noradrenaline and serotonin, the very chemicals responsible for logical reasoning, focused attention, and rational waking thought, are almost entirely shut off. In addition, a sharp increase in dopamine marks the transition from NREM to REM, sleep in regions like the nucleus accumbens and basolateral amygdala, signaling a critical shift toward memory integration and abstraction. Asterisk, thrust into this unique chemical cocktail, the brain begins a process of psychological alchemy. The activation synthesis hypothesis explains that during REM sleep, the brainstem fires off chaotic bursts of neural static, known as the activation phase. These signals bombard the cerebral cortex, a magnificent meaning-making machine that desperately tries to weave a coherent narrative from this random storm of internal data, which is the synthesis phase. If the random signals hit your motor cortex, you dream you are running. If they strike your visual cortex, shifting landscapes materialize. Asterisk, modern functional MRI scans reveal that dreaming is far more profound than just interpreting random static. During REM sleep, the limbic system, the emotional heartland of the brain, goes into absolute overdrive. The amygdala, the key node for processing fear and intense emotion, becomes hyperactive, explaining why so many of our dreams are drenched in anxiety or primal terror. Meanwhile, the hippocampus rummages through the vaults of recent and distant experiences, pulling out a mosaic of your past. While these emotional and memory centers blaze with activity, the dorsal prefrontal cortex, the brain's executive suite responsible for logic, self-reflection, and critical judgment, goes completely offline. Without this center of rationality, our ability to question reality completely dissolves. We accept the most bizarre, impossible scenarios without a single doubt, completely blind to the absurdity of our own minds. Asterisk. Why does the brain expend such massive amounts of energy on these nightly hallucinations? Science reveals that the dreaming brain operates under a highly optimized set of rules designed for survival and psychological processing. One of the most critical functions of REM sleep is the active consolidation and integration of memory. Theta waves, oscillating at 5 to 8 Hz, dominate the RE state, facilitating the integration of newly acquired experiences into your existing web of knowledge and extracting general rules. Dreaming is the subjective experience of this very integration. Unconstrained by linear logic, the dreaming mind actively tests novel connections between disparate ideas, searching for hidden patterns and creative solutions. Asterisk, perhaps even more miraculously, REM sleep serves as a form of overnight therapy. Every day, we accumulate emotionally charged memories. During REM sleep, the brain reactivates and reprocesses these difficult experiences in a neurochemical environment, entirely devoid of the stress-inducing chemical noradrenaline. Dreaming allows us to safely re-examine trauma in a virtual space, stripping away the painful, visceral, emotional edge while retaining the informational memory of the event. This nightly emotional recalibration is why a full night's sleep grants us a clearer perspective on yesterday's sorrows. Asterisk, from an evolutionary standpoint, our dreams act as our most ancient survival simulator. The threat simulation theory posits that for our early human ancestors, the waking world was fraught with physical peril. By simulating threats in the safe paralysis of a dream, such as being chased by a predator or falling from a great height, early humans rehearsed their fight or flight instincts without any real-world risk. Today, your brain generates anxiety dreams to keep your coping mechanisms primed and your survival instincts sharpened for the challenges of the waking world. The surrealism of the dream is not a flaw in human biology, but a meticulously crafted feature where emotion reigns, logic recedes, and creative connections run wild to mend the psychological wear and tear of waking life. The brain does not randomly select the material for its nightly narratives. Instead, it engages in a sophisticated process of triage, prioritizing the memories and emotions that are most relevant to our survival and well-being. This concept, known as day residue, means the dreaming brain fastidiously selects fragments of our waking lives, a brief conversation, a fleeting image, or a challenging problem, and weaves them into its thematic tapestry. The selection criteria are heavily weighted by emotion. Events that are tagged with a strong emotional charge, whether positive or negative, act as a relevance filter, signaling to the sleeping brain that a particular memory requires immediate processing. An argument with a loved one or the anxiety preceding a major presentation is much more likely to surface in a dream than the mundane act of washing dishes. This is the brain's memory consolidation and emotional regulation machinery at work, analyzing and integrating our most pressing psychic material within the safe, simulated environment of the dream. Asterisk. But what happens when the carefully choreographed machinery of the sleep cycle falters? In a condition known as REM sleep behavior disorder, or RBD, the normal muscular paralysis of REM sleep fails. Without this vital atonia, individuals physically act out their dreams, which are often violent and aggressive, leading them to thrash, kick, and fight invisible foes. In classic experiments, when researchers disabled the part of a cat's brain stem responsible for REM atonia, the sleeping animals got up, stalked, and pounced on unseen prey, providing dramatic proof that dreams are immersive, full-fidelity physical simulations. Today, medical science recognizes RBD as far more than a mere sleep disturbance. It is a powerful early warning sign. The malfunctioning of this brainstem circuitry is often a precursor that predicts the onset of neurodegenerative diseases, like Parkinson's disease or Lewy body dementia, a decade or two before other physical motor symptoms appear. The dream, in this case, becomes a literal diagnostic window into the future of the brain's physical health. At the opposite end of the experiential spectrum, the nightly simulation occasionally achieves a miraculous, paradoxical state. The dreamer suddenly becomes aware that they are dreaming. This is lucid dreaming. From a neurological standpoint, this phenomenon corresponds with the partial reactivation of the dorsal prefrontal cortex, the sober CEO of the brain that is normally dormant during REM sleep. With this higher-order cognitive center back online, the dreamer gains conscious volition, no longer a passive passenger, but an active director capable of influencing the dream's events. By agreeing on prearranged signals, such as a specific sequence of eye movements, scientists have established real-time communication with sleeping subjects. Breathtakingly, when a lucid dreamer reports that they are clenching their fist in a dream, functional MRI scans show corresponding activation in the actual motor cortex of their physical brain, even though their body remains paralyzed. The simulated actions within the dream matrix recruit the exact same neural pathways as real actions in waking life, highlighting the profound realism of the brain's simulation. Asterisk. The scientific exploration of sleep is now moving from passive observation to active engineering. Through a groundbreaking technique called targeted memory reactivation, researchers can expose a subject to a specific sensory cue, like a sound or a scent, while they learn a task during the day. When that exact same cue is replayed softly during deep NREM sleep, it selectively reactivates the specific neural pathways involved in that memory, significantly strengthening it. The sleeping brain perceives external information and uses it to guide its internal work. Even more direct interventions are becoming a reality. By using transcranial alternating current stimulation, researchers can apply weak, oscillating electrical currents to the scalp. By tuning this current to specific gamma band brainwaves associated with conscious awareness, they have successfully increased the likelihood of subjects experiencing lucid dreams. We are literally learning how to manipulate brainwave activity from the outside to switch on the lights of self-awareness within the depths of the dreaming mind. Asterisk. The most ambitious path on this new map of sleep science is the quest to visualize dreams directly. Using advanced fMRI technology, combined with the pattern recognition power of artificial intelligence, researchers are taking the first steps toward reconstructing the visual content of a dream. An algorithm is first trained on a waking subject's brain activity, learning to associate specific patterns of neural firing in the visual cortex with thousands of images. When the subject enters REM sleep, the algorithm monitors the spontaneous activity in their visual cortex and attempts to generate a visual reconstruction of what the dreaming brain is seeing. While still rudimentary and ghostly, producing blurry, shifting amalgamations of shapes and concepts, it is a staggering technological proof of concept. The information needed to decode the imagery of a dream is objectively present in the brain's electrical signals. We are building a dream camera, a technology that could revolutionize our approach to psychology and the study of subjective experience itself. The existence of the dream world forces us to confront a staggering philosophical reality. Every night, without any real-time sensory input from the external physical world, your brain spontaneously generates a complete, immersive, sensorially rich universe. This demonstrates that our waking reality is not a passive reception of sensory data, but an active, ongoing construction, a controlled hallucination generated by the brain, constantly calibrated and corrected by information from our senses. When that sensory input is removed in sleep, the brain's raw, universe-generating power is unleashed in its purest form. We do not go to sleep to escape reality. We descend into the midnight labyrinth to build, repair, and understand it. The dream is a testament to the ceaseless creative and restorative power of the human brain. Each night, it dismantles the day, sorts the fragments of experience, and reconstructs our sense of self, ensuring that we awaken not just rested, but remade, ready once more for the light of a new day. We have explored the bizarre alchemy of the dreaming mind, the pruning of our memories, and the technological marvels that may one day capture our nightly visions on a digital screen. But a profound mystery remains. What invisible forces govern this nightly descent? How does the brain orchestrate the precise moment we surrender our consciousness? And how does the theater of dreams evolve from the moment we are born to the twilight of our lives? To answer this, we must examine the hidden clockwork of the mind and the evolutionary journey of sleep itself. The onset of sleep is not a simple fading of the light, but the result of a fierce biological negotiation between two powerful forces. The first is homeostatic sleep pressure. During prolonged wakefulness, as your brain consumes energy and degrades ATP, extracellular levels of a chemical called adenosine steadily rise in areas like the basal forebrain. Adenosine acts as a biological accumulator, a chemical hourglass that builds an increasingly unbearable need to sleep the longer you stay awake. Simultaneously, the second force, your circadian rhythm, is governed by a master clock known as the suprachiasmatic nucleus, or SCN, located deep within the hypothalamus. Driven by a molecular loop and synchronized by light signals from the retina, the SCN dictates the optimal 24-hour timing for your body to rest. When the mounting weight of adenosine and the timing of the circadian clock align, a master switch is thrown. The ventrolateral preoptic nucleus, or VLPO, awakens. This dense cluster of sleep-active neurons acts as the brain's assassin of wakefulness, firing inhibitory neurotransmitters like GABA and galanin directly into the brainstem's arousal centers. These arousal centers are suddenly gagged and silenced, cutting off the supply of wake-promoting chemicals. Neuroscientists and electrical engineers alike refer to this elegant, mutually inhibitory circuit as a flip-flop switch. The brain avoids transitional states. It wants you fully awake to face predators, or fully asleep to recover. The flip-flop switch ensures that the transition between wakefulness and sleep is sharp and complete. To prevent this switch from randomly flipping and plunging you into sleep during the day, the brain utilizes a specialized group of neurons in the lateral hypothalamus that produce a neuropeptide called orexin. Orexin neurons act as a stabilizing finger on the switch, constantly reinforcing the arousal systems during wakefulness and preventing unwanted transitions into slumber. The devastating consequences of a malfunctioning switch are witnessed in the disorder known as narcolepsy. Individuals with narcolepsy lack these crucial orexin neurons, causing their flip-flop switch to become violently unstable. They suffer from irresistible attacks of daytime sleepiness and a terrifying symptom called cataplexy, where emotional triggers cause a sudden, paralyzing loss of muscle tone as the brain inappropriately plunges into REM-like paralysis while the person is fully awake. Once the switch is successfully thrown and the architecture of sleep is established, the nature of the internal theater it generates undergoes a profound transformation across the human lifespan, mirroring the development of the brain itself. Consider the newborn infant. Newborns spend a remarkable 50% or more of their sleep time in the REM state, vastly more than adults. Yet, they lack the rich repository of life experiences required to construct complex narratives. Science suggests that this intense, dream-filled sleep serves a structural purpose: synaptogenesis. Infant REM sleep acts as a form of programmed neural stimulation, activating and strengthening essential brain circuits to build the fundamental cognitive scaffolding necessary for future learning. Their dreams may be an abstract ballet of raw sensation and emotion, templates of experience for the world to come. Asterisk, as a child grows, their dreams evolve in parallel with their cognitive maturity. The dreams of young children are often less narrative and more like static snapshots, frequently populated with animals, which reflects the gradual, ongoing development of the prefrontal cortex and the ability to construct linear sequences. By adolescence and adulthood, the dream world takes on its familiar, immersive, narrative-driven form. The brain's threat simulation mechanism rehearses responses to modern social anxieties, and dream content directly reflects the complex preoccupations of waking life. Finally, as we enter late adulthood, the architecture of sleep changes once more. The proportion of time spent in both deep slow-wave sleep and REM sleep typically decreases, and older adults often report fewer and less intensely emotional dreams. This decline in deep sleep may also contribute to age-related difficulties in memory consolidation, proving that the nightly work of the sleeping brain remains a vital component of cognitive health until our final days. Asterisk, while the specific details of our dreams are intensely personal, they also tap into a shared reservoir of human experience. Across cultures and continents, people report dreaming of strikingly similar scenarios, recurring universal themes that act as psychological archetypes. The ubiquitous dream of falling may be a vestigial fear inherited from our arboreal ancestors, for whom a fall meant certain death, or a sensory misinterpretation of our muscles relaxing. The common, unsettling dream of our teeth falling out might connect to the real-world evolutionary importance of healthy teeth for survival, or simply the physical sensation of grinding our teeth in the night. The consistency of these themes suggests that the fundamental grammar and vocabulary of the dream language are scripted by our shared evolutionary journey. Asterisk. This evolutionary journey extends far beyond humanity. The biological signature of dreaming, the cycle of NREM and REM sleep, complete with intense brain activation and muscular paralysis, is not exclusively human. It is present in virtually all mammals, and even in birds. Any pet owner who has watched a sleeping dog twitch its paws and flutter its eyelids has witnessed a dreaming brain at work. In classic experiments, when neuroscientists disabled the brainstem region responsible for M. atonia in cats, the sleeping animals did not lie still. Instead, they stood up, stalked, and physically pounced on invisible prey, providing dramatic proof that their dreams are immersive, full-fidelity physical simulations relevant to their waking survival. The existence of dreaming across such a wide spectrum of species underscores its deep evolutionary roots. It proves that the need to process memories, regulate primal emotions, and rehearse survival behaviors in the offline sanctuary of sleep is an ancient, vital adaptation for any complex brain navigating a challenging world. Every moment of your waking life, your brain is fundamentally altering its physical structure. As you navigate the world, learn new skills, and form memories, the connections between your neurons, your synapses, are actively strengthened. This relentless daytime process, known as synaptic potentiation, is the very foundation of learning and human adaptability. However, this constant waking plasticity comes at a staggering biological price. Asterisk. The cerebral cortex is the most metabolically expensive tissue in the human body. When synapses are strengthened, they consume significantly more energy. In fact, approximately 40% of the cortex's energy budget is spent solely on neuronal repolarization following synaptic activity. Furthermore, strengthened synapses physically grow, demanding more space within the densely packed real estate of the skull. If this process of synaptic growth were to continue unchecked, our neural circuits would rapidly reach a state of absolute saturation, leading to metabolic overload, neuropil crowding, and a complete inability to learn anything new. Asterisk to prevent this systemic failure. The brain employs an
It
elegant
is an
nightly
ancient
solution,
adaptation
explained by the
for any
synaptic
complex
homeostasis
brain.
hypothesis.
The need
Sleep,
to
according to
process
this framework,
memories
is the
and
mandatory price we
rehearse
pay for
survival
waking plasticity.
behaviors in the
As you descend into the deep
offline
stages of
sanctuary
non-rapid
sleep
eye movement,
remains
or
vital
NREM
for
sleep,
navigating
your
a
brain initiates a
challenging
massive,
world.
generalized
We have
downscaling of its
explored
neural
the bizarre
connections,
alchemy
driven
of
by the rhythmic,
dreaming mind,
alternating phases
the
of cellular
pruning of our
depolarization
memories,
and
and
hyperpolarization
the
that defines
technological
slow-wave sleep.
marvels
The
that
strength of
may
virtually
capture
every
our
synapse
visions.
impinging on your cortical
But
neurons
a
is
profound
proportionally reduced.
mystery remains.
Asterisk. This global
What
downscaling is a
invisible
masterpiece of
forces
biological
govern
efficiency,
this nightly
because all
descent?
synapses shed
How
the same
does
proportional
the
amount of their
brain
weight. The
orchestrate
relative
the
differences in
precise
strength between them
moment we
are perfectly
surrender
preserved.
our
The crucial,
consciousness?
robust memory traces
And
from your
how
day
does the
survive this
theater
nightly
of
pruning,
dreams
while the
evolve
weak,
from the
irrelevant
moment
neural
we
connections,
are
the
part
background
of the
noise of your daily
twilight
life,
of our
are weakened
lives?
to the point of
To
being
answer
entirely
this,
erased. By
we
scaling
must
down the entire
examine
network,
the hidden
sleep
clockwork
dramatically
of the
increases the
mind
signal-to-noise
and the
ratio in your brain,
evolutionary
ensuring
journey
that
of
you wake up
sleep
with a clean
itself.
slate,
The
restored energy
onset of
reserves,
sleep is
and a
not
renewed
simple
capacity to
fading
absorb the
of
world.
light, but the result of a fierce
FASCINATINGLY.
biological
This process of synaptic
negotiation
recovery
between
is not a
two
uniform
powerful
blanket that covers the
forces.
entire brain
The
equally.
first is
Sleep is intensely,
homeostatic
intricately
sleep
local.
pressure.
If you spend your day
During
heavily
prolonged
engaging a specific neural
wakefulness,
circuit, for example,
as your brain
intensely practicing a new
consumes
visual motor
energy
task
and
that relies on the
degrades
right parietal
ATP,
cortex, that specific region of
levels
your
of
brain will experience
adenosine
a
steadily
localized
rise.
intensification of sleep.
Adenosine
High-density
acts
EEG
as
recordings
a
revealed that the
biological
specific areas pushed the hardest
accumulator,
during the day
a
will generate
chemical
much larger,
hourglass
steeper
that
slow
builds
waves
an
that night,
increasingly
effectively targeting the
unbearable
downscaling
pace of
process
sleep
exactly
the
where the
longer
metabolic
you
and synaptic
stay
need is
awake.
greatest. Asterisk. Yet,
Simultaneously,
even as
the
your higher-order
second
cognitive
force of
networks, the
circadian
areas
rhythm
responsible
is
for complex
governed by
thought,
a master
memory,
clock
and
known
daytime
as the
reasoning quiet down
suprachiasmatic
and dramatically
nucleus,
reduce their
or
energy consumption
SCN,
to undergo this vital
located
maintenance.
within
A
the
remarkable evolutionary
hypothalamus,
safeguard keeps you
driven
tethered to
by
the
a
physical world,
molecular loop
using a
and
revolutionary
synchronized
trimodal
by
imaging
light
technique
signals
that
from
simultaneously
the
combines
retina.
EEG,
The SCN
fMRI,
dictates
and
the
PET scans.
optimal
Researchers have
24-hour
uncovered a hidden
timing
layer of
for your
coordination
body to
within the deep
rest.
sleeping brain.
When the
They
melting
discovered that while the
weight of
default mode network is
adenosine
deeply
and
suppressed,
the timing
your
of the
primary sensory and motor
circadian
areas
clock
remain
align,
surprisingly active
a
and dynamic.
master switch is
Asterisk.
struck.
This high
The
metabolism sensoromotor network
ventrolateral cryptic
operates on a slow
nucleus awakens.
0.02 Hz oscillation,
This dense
intentionally
cluster of
maintaining a low-power
sleep-active
radar system.
neurons
It
acts
ensures
as the
that blood flow
brain's
remains dynamic
assassin
in
of
sensory
wakefulness,
regions, so that the sleeping
firing
brain can continue to
inhibitory
monitor the external
neurotransmitters
environment.
like
This dual
GABA
function of
directly
NREM
into
sleep
the arousal
allows the brain to
centers.
aggressively clear
These
metabolic
arousal
waste and
centers
prune
are
overgrown synapses,
cyclogenic
while
and
remaining
silent,
exquisitely sensitive to
cutting
environmental
off the
cues
supply
that might
of
require a sudden,
light-promoting
life-saving
chemicals.
awakening. You are unconscious,
Neuroscientists
but you are never
refer to
truly
this
unguarded.
mutually
Asterisk. This
inhibitory
delicate nightly
circuit
balance
as a
between profound
flip-flop
vulnerability,
switch.
memory
The
pruning,
brain
and sensory
avoids
vigilance is entirely
transitional
orchestrated
states.
by a precise
It
chemical
wants
symphony.
you fully
As the brain
awake
transitions
or
through the
fully
stages of sleep,
asleep.
neuromodulators
The
act as the
flip-flop
master conductors.
switch ensures
During
that the
NREM sleep,
transition
levels of neuropine
between
frames slowly oscillate,
wakefulness
and these
sleep
exact
is
chemical
sharp
fluctuations
and complete.
perfectly time the
To
generation of
prevent
sleep
this
spindles,
switch
bursts of
from
thalamocortical
randomly
activity
flipping,
that
the
physically lock new
brain
memories into the
utilizes a
cortex.
group of
Asterisk. Then,
neurons in the
as the slow
lateral
waves of NREM
hypothalamus
recede and the
that
brain prepares to
produce
enter
a
the vivid,
neuropeptide
hallucinatory realm of
orexin.
REM sleep, the chemical landscape shifts once more.
Act as
A sharp, sudden surge of dopamine floods regions like the nucleus accumbens and the basolateral amygdala. This dopaminergic surge signals a critical transition in the brain's nightly agenda, moving away from the stabilization and physical downscaling of NREM sleep and plunging into the memory integration, abstraction, and emotional tagging that define our most vivid dreams. Asterisk. This is the hidden clockwork of the mind. Every night, the brain seamlessly shifts between cleaning its tissues, pruning its overgrown circuitry, maintaining a silent watch over the physical world, and weaving our waking experiences into the deepest fabric of our identity. Sleep is not a surrender to the dark. It is a relentless, dynamic reconstruction of the self. As you navigate through the waking world, your brain is under constant siege by a relentless torrent of sensory information, new experiences, and fleeting thoughts. Every face you see, every conversation you hold, and every skill you practice leaves a delicate, transient imprint on neural circuitry. These freshly acquired experiences are initially encoded in the hippocampus, an ancient seahorse-shaped structure resting deep within the medial temporal lobe. But the hippocampus is merely a temporary biological holding buffer, possessing a strictly limited storage capacity. Its connections are highly plastic and easily modifiable, making these new memories profoundly fragile and highly susceptible to being overwritten or erased by the ongoing demands of waking life. If your memories were to remain solely in this temporary vault, your identity would constantly dissolve, and learning would be impossible. To transform these fragile, short-term impressions into permanent, stable long-term memories, a process known to neuroscience as memory consolidation, the brain requires an absolute disconnection from the external environment. It requires the sanctuary of sleep. Asterisk, the astonishing nightly transformation of your memories is governed by two deeply interconnected processes: systems consolidation and synaptic consolidation. While synaptic consolidation works at the microscopic level to fine-tune and strengthen local connections between individual neurons, systems consolidation is a massive brain-wide reorganization. During this active systems consolidation, the fragile memory traces temporarily held in the hippocampus are painstakingly transferred, redistributed, and permanently integrated into the vast, distributed networks of the cerebral cortex, where they become resistant to interference and decay. For decades, scientists believed this process only applied to episodic and spatial memories. But revolutionary new data reveals that even physical skills and motor memories rely on this dynamic hippocampal cortical dialogue during the early stages of sleep. Asterisk. This monumental transfer of data is not a passive settling of information, but a violently active, meticulously synchronized electrical symphony. As you descend into the depths of non-rapid eye movement, or NREM sleep, the brain utilizes three distinct, perfectly orchestrated neural oscillations to execute this data transfer. The first of these are the slow oscillations. Originating in the cerebral cortex, these massive, slow rolling waves pulse at a frequency of 0.1 to 4 Hz. Sweeping across the brain in alternating phases of synchronized neuronal firing, known as upstates and absolute, hyperpolarized silence, known as downstates. These slow oscillations act as the grand conductors of the sleeping brain, providing the temporal framework required for the entire network to synchronize. Asterisk. Nested within the depolarized upstates of these slow oscillations is the second key rhythm, the sleep spindle. Spindles are transient, explosive bursts of electrical activity oscillating at 10 to 15 Hz. They originate in the nucleus reticularis of the thalamus and are projected upward into the cortex. Spindles act as a critical sensory gate, blocking external stimuli from waking you, while simultaneously creating optimal conditions for synaptic plasticity. Asterisk. But the true magic of memory transfer occurs with the third oscillation, the sharp wave ripple. Originating in the CA1 region of the hippocampus, these are incredibly fast. High-frequency oscillations vibrating at 150 to 250 Hz. During these sharp wave ripples, the neural representations of your waking experiences are literally replayed. The precise sequence of neurons that fired while you were learning a task during the day fire again in the dark, but they do so temporally compressed, replaying the event at lightning speed. When the slow oscillations of the cortex, the spindles of the thalamus, and the sharp wave ripples of the hippocampus align in perfect temporal coupling, a channel of communication is forced open. The compressed memories are packaged and fired upward from the hippocampus, riding the wave of the spindle into the cerebral cortex for permanent storage. Asterisk. Yet, recent high-density recordings have revealed a staggering nuance to this process. Not all slow waves are engaged in saving your memories. Some are actively erasing them. Scientists have discovered that the slow waves of NREM sleep actually consist of two distinct, competing phenomena. The massive global slow oscillations actively promote memory consolidation and stabilization. However, intermixed with them are smaller, more localized pulses known as delta waves, which have been directly associated with the active forgetting of information. These two waves often occur in structured temporal sequences, a massive slow oscillation followed by a cluster of delta waves, representing an elegant biological balance. The brain selectively strengthens the most crucial memories while simultaneously pruning away the useless neural noise. Ensuring your memory networks are optimized without exceeding their storage capacity. Asterisk. The flawless timing of this memory-saving symphony is governed by an invisible chemical tide. One of the most critical conductors of this process is norepinephrine, a powerful neuromodulator released from the locus coeruleus in the brainstem. During wakefulness, norepinephrine fuels your arousal, stress, and attention. But during NREM sleep, its levels drop and begin to oscillate at a deeply slow frequency of 0.02 Hz. These chemical fluctuations are functionally profound. When locus coeruleus neurons fire and norepinephrine temporarily rises, it triggers the clustering of sleep spindles, driving the reactivation of learned experiences. Then, as norepinephrine levels drop back down to a sustained low, it creates a highly permissive neurochemical window that allows synaptic consolidation to occur without interference. If this delicate chemical oscillation is disrupted, or if norepinephrine levels remain too high, the critical communication between the hippocampus and the cortex collapses, and the memory is lost. Asterisk. As the restorative waves of NREM sleep reach their conclusion, the chemical landscape of the brain is subjected to a violent radical shift. Norepinephrine levels plunge to their absolute lowest point, reaching near silence. Simultaneously, a sharp, sudden surge of dopamine floods into the nucleus accumbens and the basolateral amygdala. This explosive dopaminergic surge signals a critical transition in the brain's nocturnal agenda. The phase of stabilizing and replaying memories is over. The brain is now plunging into the vivid, hallucinatory realm of rapid eye movement, or REM sleep, transitioning from the rigid stabilization of facts to the fluid integration and abstraction of ideas. Asterisk. As you enter REM sleep, the massive, rolling, slow waves of the cortex vanish. In their place, a distinct, rhythmic hum takes over the hippocampus. The theta wave. Oscillating at 5 to 8 Hz, theta waves are driven by projections from the medial septum and are the biological signature of the REM state. If NREM sleep is the brain's biological hard drive, saving the raw data of your day, REM sleep is its master synthesizer. Theta oscillations facilitate emotional memory processing, cognitive flexibility, and the integration of newly acquired information into your pre-existing webs of knowledge. Asterisk. During this REM state, the brain engages in a process of psychological alchemy. It links new, seemingly unrelated memories to old semantic frameworks, driving abstraction and associative learning. It extracts the general rules from the specific events of your day, allowing you to generalize your knowledge to solve future problems. Simultaneously, REM sleep engages in a ruthless process of synaptic refinement. While NREM sleep globally strengthens the connections involved in memory encoding, REM sleep selectively prunes them. It systematically weakens or entirely eliminates redundant, weakly activated, or unnecessary synapses, preventing your neural networks from becoming overloaded with useless data. This targeted synaptic refinement stabilizes the most behaviorally relevant connections, while ensuring your brain retains the cognitive efficiency and flexibility required to learn anew the following day. This incredibly complex two-stage engine of memory consolidation forces us to view the sleeping brain in an entirely new light. Systems consolidation is not a passive transfer of files. It is an active, highly selective process of curation. The vivid, bizarre, and often emotional narratives of our dreams may very well be the subjective, conscious experience of these exact processes, the phenomenal echo of recent and remote memories colliding, merging, and transforming under the influence of theta waves and dopamine. We do not simply sleep to rest. We surrender our consciousness every night so that our brain can meticulously sort through the fragments of our waking lives, selectively weaving the most vital threads of our experience into the permanent tapestry of our identity. We have witnessed the meticulous biological choreography of the sleeping brain, a nightly symphony of chemical tides, electrical oscillations, and cellular shrinking that cleanses our tissues and cements our identities. Yet this intricate system is profoundly fragile. What happens when the symphony is interrupted? In our modern, relentlessly illuminated world, sleep is often the first casualty of our waking ambitions. But defying the biological imperative of sleep exacts a devastating toll on the brain. When we restrict our sleep, we deny the brain its essential period of synaptic homeostasis. Throughout the waking day, our neural circuits undergo constant synaptic potentiation and upselection, where connections are strengthened as we actively interact with our environment. This relentless daytime plasticity comes with massive biological costs, demanding immense metabolic energy and physical space within the dense gray matter of the skull. Without the restorative, global downscaling of deep NREM sleep, the cerebral cortex enters a state of absolute synaptic saturation and metabolic overload. Neural crowding occurs, the signal-to-noise ratio of our thoughts plummets, and our capacity to learn anything new simply grinds to a halt. Furthermore, the glymphatic system is denied the time it needs to pump cerebrospinal fluid through the brain tissue. Toxic metabolic waste, including amyloid beta, is left to accumulate in the interstitial spaces, quietly laying the neurodegenerative groundwork for Alzheimer's disease and other forms of dementia. The consequences of disrupted sleep are not merely future physical risks. They manifest in immediate, profound psychological distress. Consider primary insomnia. It is not just a frustrating inability to fall asleep. It is a punishing 24-hour state of chronic biological hyperarousal. Advanced neuroimaging reveals that the brains of insomniacs fail to properly deactivate higher-order executive regions, like the medial prefrontal cortex and the anterior cingulate cortex, during the descent into sleep. Because their brains cannot fully surrender to the offline state, they fail to achieve the widespread synaptic downscaling required for true restoration. This unyielding synaptic overload manifests as the hallmark symptoms of insomnia: daytime fatigue, severe cognitive impairment, emotional instability, and a persistent, subjective feeling of unrefreshing sleep. The machinery of sleep is also deeply entangled with our emotional stability, serving as a critical diagnostic window into psychiatric disorders like major depression. Depressed individuals frequently suffer from fragmented sleep architecture, exhibiting a severe disruption in deep, slow-wave sleep and a shortened latency to enter REM sleep. Remarkably, acute sleep deprivation can actually serve as a rapid, though temporary, antidepressant for a subset of these patients. The synaptic homeostasis hypothesis provides a fascinating, paradoxical explanation for this. In certain depressed patients, the baseline synaptic strength in crucial cortical limbic circuits may be abnormally low, manifesting as the hypofrontality seen in brain scans. Forcing the brain to stay awake drives a relentless accumulation of synaptic strength, temporarily restoring these emotional networks to normal operational levels and alleviating the depressive symptoms. However, as soon as the patient falls asleep and the brain executes its mandatory nightly downscaling, the fragile synaptic gains are erased and the depression returns. Asterisk. While psychiatric conditions reveal the emotional fragility of the sleep cycle, other sleep disorders serve as dark, prophetic harbingers of physical disease. In REM sleep behavior disorder, or RBD, the brainstem circuitry responsible for paralyzing the body during REM sleep completely fails. Patients are freed from the protective muscular atonia and physically act out their dreams thrashing, shouting, and fighting invisible foes in the dark. But medical science now recognizes RBD as far more than a nocturnal disturbance. It is a powerful, early warning sign. The vast majority of individuals who develop RBD will, within a decade or two, be diagnosed with severe neurodegenerative conditions, most commonly Parkinson's disease or Lewy body dementia. The violent, active dreams of RBD act as a literal diagnostic window into the future of the brain's physical deterioration, manifesting long before any waking motor symptoms ever appear. Asterisk. To truly grasp the profound shift in consciousness that allows for these nightly phenomena, neuroscientists rely on the AIM model and acronym for activation, input-output gating, and modulation. During wakefulness, brain activation is high. The input-output gate is wide open to the physical world, and our chemical modulation is dominated by rationality-promoting neurotransmitters like serotonin and norepinephrine. During NREM sleep, activation drops, the sensory gates begin to close, and consciousness dims into the slow wave dark. But during REM sleep, the system is radically inverted. Brain activation skyrockets back to waking levels, but the input-output gates are slammed completely shut, locking us inside a sensory vault. Simultaneously, the chemical modulation shifts entirely rational neurotransmitters plummet, and the brain is flooded with acetylcholine and dopamine, erasing logic and unleashing a torrent of vivid emotion and spontaneous imagery. Asterisk. Understanding this isolated, highly active state forces us to confront a staggering philosophical reality. Every single night, your brain generates a fully immersive, three-dimensional universe entirely from scratch. It populates this world with complex physics, landscapes, and self-aware agents, all without a single drop of real-time sensory input from the external environment. This simple fact demonstrates that your brain inherently possesses all the necessary biological machinery to create a universe. It reveals that our waking reality is not a passive reception of the outside world, but an active, ongoing construction, a controlled hallucination generated by the mind, merely constrained and corrected by the sensory data flowing in through the eyes and ears. When those sensory inputs are severed in the darkness of sleep, the brain's raw, universe-generating power is unleashed in its purest, most unadulterated form.* dreams are not mystical missives or psychic fluff. They are a fundamental biological process, deeply rooted in the architecture of the human mind. They are a virtual rehearsal stage for our fragile memories, a nightly therapy session for our deepest traumas, and an ancient simulator designed to hone our survival instincts. The bizarre, fragmented plots and impossible physics of the dreamscape are not flaws, but the meticulously crafted features of a brain where emotion reigns. Logic recedes and creative connections run wild. To fall asleep is not to surrender to the void. It is to entrust ourselves to an ancient, highly intelligent process of restoration, integration, and creation. As you drift towards sleep tonight, know that you are not simply shutting down. You are embarking on a profound journey inward, into the astonishing nocturnal theater of the mind, where the most important work of being human continues, quietly, in the dark. We have mapped the molecular tides, the electrical storms, and the microscopic cellular transformations that define the hidden universe inside your skull. We have seen how the brain physically washes itself of toxins, how it relentlessly prunes our synapses to save energy and space, and how it weaves the fragile fragments of our waking lives into the permanent tapestry of our identity. But as we reach the culmination of our journey, we must confront the forces that command this system, the ultimate paradox of why we forget our nocturnal lives, and the staggering philosophical truth that sleep reveals about human consciousness itself. Asterisk, the descent into sleep is governed by a fierce biological negotiation. As we have seen, the homeostatic pressure of adenosine builds relentlessly the longer we stay awake, while the circadian clock, driven by the suprachiasmatic nucleus, or SCN, dictates the optimal time for rest. Yet, biology is not a rigid machine. It must adapt to the unpredictable chaos of survival. What happens when the biological imperative to sleep collides with a sudden physical threat, a looming deadline, or the primal ache of starvation? Asterisk, to navigate this, the brain utilizes an extraordinary third system known as the allostatic regulation of sleep. The SCN does not directly force the brain to sleep. Instead, it relays its temporal signals through a specialized region called the subparaventricular zone, which then projects into the true master integrator of the hypothalamus, the dorsomedial nucleus, or DMH. The DMH is the brain's ultimate survival calculator. It weighs the circadian rhythm and the homeostatic need for sleep against a continuous flood of visceral and emotional data. Asterisk, if you are starving. The DMH receives hunger signals from ghrelin and leptin, and it decisively overrides the sleep drive, forcing the arousal systems to stay active so you can forage for food. If you are terrified, corticolimbic structures like the infralimbic cortex and the amygdala flood the DMH with signals of emotional distress. In response, the DMH throws its weight against the ventrolateral preoptic nucleus, violently jamming the brain's flip-flop switch into the wake position. This highly intelligent, allostatic override kept our ancient ancestors alive in a world fraught with predators. Yet today, in a modern world characterized by chronic psychological stress, this very survival mechanism is what keeps the brains of insomniacs hyper-aroused, preventing them from surrendering to the dark. Asterisk, when the environment is finally safe, and we do successfully surrender to slumber, we enter the vivid, hallucinated reality of the dream matrix. But this raises one of the greatest paradoxes of human biology. If the dreaming brain is so extraordinarily active, if it generates such emotionally intense, fully immersive, narrative-driven worlds, why do we forget almost everything the moment we open our eyes? We spend a collective span of several years over a human lifetime living inside dreams. Yet this vast portion of our autobiography vanishes into the ether. Asterisk, the answer lies in the fact that dreaming is an unreflective and intentionally forgetful state of consciousness. The neurochemical environment of the dreaming mind is highly volatile. During REM sleep, the brain is almost entirely devoid of monoamines, particularly noradrenaline, a neurotransmitter that is absolutely critical for encoding new experiences into long-term episodic memory. Furthermore, the dorsal prefrontal cortex, the center of working memory, reflection, and cognitive control is largely deactivated. Asterisk, without noradrenaline, and without the active engagement of our executive networks, we cannot pause to reflect on what is happening, and we cannot hit the biological save button on our experiences. A dream is like a soap bubble, beautiful, complex, and fully realized for a moment. but it vanishes almost instantly upon contact with the neurochemical air of wakefulness. We are most likely to remember a dream only if we awaken directly out of it, allowing the waking brain's robust memory encoding systems to capture the fragile, fading trace before it is overwritten by the sensory input of the real world. Asterisk, but this amnesia is not a biological flaw. It is a profound necessity. If we perfectly remembered every impossible, bizarre, and emotionally intense dream as if it had actually happened, our waking reality would become inextricably tangled with hallucinations. The brain intentionally suspends memory acquisition to keep the factual hard drive of our waking life pristine. Asterisk. The scientific exploration of sleep forces a radical shift in our understanding of what it means to exist. We typically think of waking life as the primary reality, and dreams as an impoverished, simulated echo. But modern neuroscience suggests the exact opposite. Dreaming consciousness, a brain generating a rich, immersive, three-dimensional universe entirely from its own internal connections. Completely disconnected from the outside world is the baseline condition of the human mind. Asterisk, from the intrinsic perspective of your brain, every dreamt experience feels completely, undeniably real. Wakefulness merely adds three things to this baseline state of dreaming. First, it adds connectedness to the environment, tethering our internal simulation to the physical data flowing through our eyes and ears. Second, it adds cognitive control and metacognition, allowing us to question absurdity and direct our actions. And finally, it adds the dependable companionship of memory, recording a linear timeline of our existence. Waking perception, therefore, is essentially a waking dream that has been disciplined by the physical world. Asterisk. The world of dreams is not some other place we visit. It is an integral part of who we are. It is the silent, hidden half of our autobiography, written each night in a language of symbols, associations, and raw feelings. We do not go to sleep to escape reality. We descend into the midnight labyrinth to build, repair, and ultimately understand it. Asterisk, the sleeping brain is a tireless forge. Each night, in a world of its own creation, it dismantles the day, sorts the fragments of our experience, washes away the toxic ash of our thoughts, and reconstructs our sense of self. To fall asleep is to entrust ourselves to an ancient, highly intelligent process of restoration and creation. As you close your eyes tonight, know that you are not simply shutting down. You are embarking on a profound journey inward, into the astonishing nocturnal theater of the mind, where the most important work of being human continues, quietly, in the dark.